one of three of Senator Wagner's interview. Hope you enjoy! So today, civics class, I'm interviewing Senator Wagner. He is a senator in the Virginia Beach area, and I have a couple questions for him. So, number one, what got you into politics?
What got me into politics? Well, Drew, I'd kind of always watched TV and followed the issues and done those kinds of things and was very interested in what was going on in government and things I agreed with, things I didn't agree with. And I had sold a company in 1989. And when I sold that company, I had a non-compete on me, which meant I couldn't get back into business for 4 years. So I didn't have a whole lot to do. And I thought, well, I really care. I really have some time now, and perhaps I ought to run for office or turn the TV off, one of the two. So I ran for office and won. That was 1991 in my first election, and really have been doing that ever since.
That leads into my next question,
Sure.
because I noticed that you were actually a delegate before you became a senator.
Yes.
So why did you want to become a state senator specifically?
Well, I had been in the House of Delegates for 9 years, okay, and it was a tough decision when then State Senator Schrock won the congressional seat, and it opened up the special election because we run odd-year elections in the state, but obviously the presidential and U.S. Senate and U.S. House of Representatives are on even-year elections. So he won, and there was a question about who would run in his stead. So, I looked at the different opportunities, and I'd gotten a lot of seniority in the House, which I was giving up to move over to the Senate, but I had certain assurances from key senators that I'd get some decent committee assignments if I decided to make the move. So I took them at their word and ran in the special election and won that election in 2000 and been in the Senate ever since.
So what do you think is your biggest contribution to the Commonwealth of Virginia?
Wow. Well, when I first got on my very first ship, and, graduated from the Naval Academy and gone to a year's worth of schools and came to that ship and really was just an ensign and didn't know much. And it was a small ship. We only had 100 people on the ship and only 8 officers. But by the time I left the ship 2 years later, I drove the ship in and out of port. I did all the navigation work. I did all the operations work. I was something called a senior watch officer, and which meant I signed watch bills for the entire ship. I basically ran the ship on behalf of the XO and the CO. And so when you come to the General Assembly, I came with that knowledge of this General Assembly was founded by our founding fathers in this nation: George Mason, George Washington, Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson. I could go on and on and on. The James Madison, just the names of the people that were involved in this. So I came with no high expectation I was going to change the entire Commonwealth. And quite frankly, there's a reason we live here. It's a pretty good state to live in. It doesn't need, it needs tweaking constantly, but it doesn't need a dramatic shift. And so I came here. I think probably the thing that I can walk away with that I'm most proud of is focusing the General Assembly's attention on the critical aspect of energy as part of our lives. We tend to take it for granted. We turn the switch on. We expect our lights to come on. We go to the gas station. We expect to have gas available to it. We take it for granted in this country, but it doesn't happen without a lot of planning and a lot of things going on right now to ensure the infrastructure is there to support the economy when you grow up. And energy infrastructure projects take a long time. They're very controversial, as we know, but they're absolutely critical for your generation to be able to share the same successes that our generation had. And so I carried the very first energy, required the governor to create a energy plan for the Commonwealth. In other words, for the first time, the governor's actually got to sit down and take a look at what the energy needs are in the Commonwealth, where we have shortfalls, and develop a plan that will satisfy those goals.
I actually wrote down, one of my questions was, what factors did you have to consider when creating the Virginia Energy Plan?
Oh, what factors? Well, first of all, you have to understand that how do we use our energy, okay? Obviously, we have ways to generate electricity, and that electricity needs to show up at the light switch in your house, right? And from a generation plant that could be 100, 200 miles away. So how does all that happen, and how do we ensure that? And obviously there's critical infrastructure that makes that happen. There's a generating. That's a critical infrastructure. It's vulnerable in many ways. It's vulnerable from a cyber threat, and it's vulnerable from just an environmental thing. Tree falling in a power line would probably be one that we could all relate to and have watched our power go off. So how do we harden that grid? There are new ways to generate, exciting ways, solar, renewable energy. How do we integrate that renewable energy into our grid and still maintain a grid that's 24/7, 365 all the time? And then you need to look at transportation fuels. How do we get our fuels here? What is the pipeline infrastructure? And then the third element of you have to look at the fuel plus the generating capabilities. So the third one is natural gas. Due to technological changes, America has become the largest source of natural gas in the world, and fracking is what I'm referring to. The fracking, it goes on the East Coast, primarily in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio. It's gas that is so locked up due to lack of an infrastructure to get the gas out of those fields to places to market. And that's the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which you probably remember has been somewhat controversial. But what a lot of folks in our area don't understand, Drew, is that our naval base, Virginia Natural Gas, has had to shut down natural gas to our naval base far too frequently due to we don't have enough natural gas in our area. People don't know that, and it's not a well-advertised fact. That polar vortex that we had a year ago, they have 105, Virginia Natural Gas has 105 curtailment customers. These are major users of natural gas, manufacturing plants, the naval base, that kind of thing. During that vortex, all 105 were curtailed, shut down. So by definition, our economy slowed down. Factories shut, the naval base wasn't operating to full potential. All of those things because we just didn't have enough natural gas. And then there's areas in Chesapeake that don't have natural gas. Suffolk, for the large part, doesn't have natural gas even available because we don't have enough supply to be able to build out the network to bring them natural gas. Suffolk alone, by the mayor's estimation, lost over $2 billion in economic investment of manufacturers because they didn't have natural gas. So they went to other states and located. That's jobs that we could have had here in Virginia. We lost simply because we didn't have natural gas. And it's much cleaner than burning coal. It has less greenhouse gas emissions, and it's become an essential part of the overall fuel mix to Virginia. As we de-emphasize coal, as nuclear seems to have hit a peak, it's very difficult to get through. And we've de-emphasized natural gas is picking up the slack and allowing us to replace dirty coal plants with natural gas plants. Solar is coming. Can it replace everything in the state? No. And at some point in time, that discussion needs to happen with folks to say, okay, if Virginia was entirely 100% renewable, relying all on solar, what would the state look like? And the state would look like a whole lot of solar panels everywhere, okay? And a whole lot less agriculture and those fields being converted over to solar panels. Again, why the governor puts together an energy plan, okay? So you add the engineering and the science over top of the political rhetoric, and you can develop a workable plan that hopefully everybody can get on board with.
In fact, I'm in earth science this year.
Yes.
And in the rock unit, we had to research all these coal, natural gas, all the different forms of energy.
Right.
And we analyzed the Virginia Energy Plan, the 2018 one.
Right.
And we proposed recommendations for it.
Oh, good for
and
you.
And it was kind of we did something like what you were just talking about, and some people proposed natural gas, to do something different with it. And
wow.
It's what you guys are doing in the Capitol about with the whole Virginia Energy Plan.
Well, that's wonderful. That's great to see you delve that. You probably have some great suggestions. You should send them to me. We probably need them. So anyway, that's fascinating. That's great stuff. So I'd love to come by and talk to your class about it sometime if your teacher wants me. So
hope you enjoyed part 1 of Senator Wagner's interview.